Sagittarius, my unbounded truth seeker, let me ask you something directly. What if the deepest call to realignment, a profound shift in your internal compass, is already stirring, and November is when it truly begins? Yes, I mean it. November might unravel a belief system you've quietly built your inner world around. It could be your trust in a philosophy, your conviction in a guiding principle, or your sense of freedom in a path that once felt unshakable. But stay close. This isn't limitation. This is liberation. A sacred undoing meant not to ground you, but to gently set you free. This isn't just a casual forecast. This is a spiritual signal dressed as a video arriving in divine timing that knows exactly when you're ready. You're not here by chance. Something beyond logic pulled you in. Maybe it's your own deep-rooted knowing, or even the echo of a forgotten wisdom that still guides you. The universe doesn't whisper until it knows you're listening, and right now you are. So take a breath, Sagittarius. Place your hand to your heart and soften your eyes for just a moment. Can you sense it? That low hum beneath everything, like a distant horizon calling you forward, is the rhythm of change. November may unearth something long believed, bring light to something hidden, or break open what once felt everlasting. But don't turn away. What breaks now isn't here to contain you. It's revealing the raw truth you've hidden beneath ideals, adventures, and old comforts. And I promise, even in the shake, there's a slow burning light coming through. We're going deep into this forecast, not just with astrology and tarot, but with truth, energy, and the kind of soul work that reshapes you from the roots up. By the end of this message, you'll understand not just what's ahead, but why your spirit called it in. Before we go further, I want to pause and say thank you truly for being here with your expansive presence, your curiosity, and your courage to meet what's real. Every time you leave a comment, hit like, or share this space, you're helping this work reach others who are ready to step through their own fire and come out forged in something stronger. So if your spirit feels stirred, if your instincts are quietly nodding, drop a comment below. I am ready to align with my deepest truth and soar not as a script, but as a declaration to the universe that you're no longer shrinking. Stay with me through this entire message, Sagittarius, because what the cards are revealing for you this time is unlike anything I've seen in a long while. What you're about to discover may shake you, but it will also shape you into something more authentically free than ever before. Let's begin. Something strange may already be unfolding, Sagittarius. And maybe you felt it not in obvious signs, but in the quiet restlessness beneath your skin, in the background hum behind your thoughts, or the heavy stillness that seems to stretch time longer than usual. That's not random. That's energy. And throughout November, it's pressing in from all directions. The stars are aligning in a way that refuses to let you keep bypassing the deeper truths. With Pluto's quiet yet powerful presence in your 12th house, the realm of hidden truths, unconscious beliefs, and spiritual unseen currents is compelling you to confront what you've unconsciously clung to. Old Soul contracts generational patterns around freedom and hidden influences that shaped your worldview without your consent. They're starting to stir. At the same time, the North Node, pointing to your karmic destiny, is emphasizing radical self-reliance and the courage to break free from outdated guidance. This rare pairing urges you to reconcile the private truth of your boundless spirit with the external narratives you've maintained, even if those narratives once protected your sense of adventure. If you've been having vivid dreams, sudden memory flashes, or a haunting sense of being tethered, it isn't fear, it's perception. Your spirit is more alert than ever. And when the soul senses a turning point, the mind often reacts with fear, confusion, or a sudden loss of direction. That's the threshold you're standing in. Something you once believed was solid, a philosophy, a mentor, a guiding truth, may no longer hold. It could be a revelation you never expected, a long-held belief unraveling, or a community that no longer feels real. And as painful as it sounds, this isn't destruction meant to cause suffering. It's disruption with a sacred rhythm. From the lens of astrology, Pluto doesn't come to demolish. He comes to unveil. He peels back what's false and leaves you face to face with what's real. The North Node doesn't come to restrict. It comes to liberate. It calls out the places where you've been pretending everything's fine when your soul knew better. And when these two cosmic forces move in tandem, you are not being punished, you are being reshaped. Like an arrow that flew off course from too much wind, the adjustments were always there, waiting for a tremor to reveal the strain. That tremor isn't collapse, it's the signal to recalibrate with something truer. That's the work happening inside you now. And this isn't just theory floating in the ether, it's about what you choose to do with the awareness that's arriving. After years walking alongside thousands of spiritual seekers, there's one truth I keep witnessing. Those who rise after loss aren't the ones who search for blame. They are the ones who ask, what is this showing me about who I've become and who I'm meant to be? Even in life's busiest stretches, the sacred often speaks through interruptions. The canceled trip, the advice that rings hollow, the person who disappears without a trace. These aren't just accidents. Sometimes they are appointments only your soul could make. Moments designed to bring you gently and then forcefully back to the road your spirit has always known. So if November sends tremors through your life, whether emotional, relational, or professional, let yourself feel them fully and honestly. Let yourself fracture if that's what comes. The breaking has its holiness. And in the quiet, after something begins to form with sharper edges and deeper truth, in the everyday pages of this life, faith isn't just a comfort. It's choosing to believe that some of the most powerful miracles are born from what lies in ruins. You are not veering off path. You're being guided back to it. This is not a punishment. This is an invitation into a new covenant with your truest self. But you must be willing to name what's falling away and bless it even as you release it. This isn't just astrology. This is your spiritual foundation being redrawn in real time, and your soul already carries the blueprint. Because sometimes it's not the event itself, it's the moment in which it arrives that cracks something wide open. Sagittarius. There are points in time that feel like pressure valves, brief windows where energy builds and breaks and everything shifts beneath the surface. November holds one of those windows for you. A moment when emotion may surge without warning and clarity arrives quietly through tension. That time frame isn't random. It's a corridor of consequence. And what I'm seeing in the cards, the Chariot reversed, 7 of Cups, 8 of Swords, and the Hierophant reversed, is a chorus of signs pointing to a wave of internal turbulence. Now hear me clearly. I'm not here to instill fear. My role isn't to warn you into hiding, but to help you prepare with open eyes. What may rise during those moments might not be visible chaos. It could be an internal quake, a sudden memory, or a truth delivered without warning. Maybe it's a phone call bearing news you didn't expect. Maybe it's a message that knocks the breath out of your chest, or a passing conversation you were never meant to hear, one that shifts everything you thought was certain. Energetically, this period is unstable. Imagine a quiet current just below the surface, stronger than it appears, able to carry you farther than you intended. This is not the moment for grand declarations, new adventures, or hasty decisions. It's also not the time to wrestle for clarity or grip for control. There is protection hidden in the pause. There is power in standing still. As I often tell the ones I guide, delay is sometimes divine redirection in disguise. In the language of the stars, the Chariot reversed is still a journey. Its momentum turned inward like an arrow pulled back before a greater shot. The 7 of Cups brings the dissolution of illusions you haven't dared to name. The 8 of Swords lays bare the mental prisons you've accepted. And the Hierophant reversed. That's the warning against blind adherence, the message to question before you leap. Together, they speak one truth. Let this moment pass. Do not push. Do not decide, just witness. Over the years, I've watched time and again how life's worst-timed interruptions later reveal themselves as sacred pivots. The trip that got canceled, the belief system that fell apart without reason, the door you begged to open that stayed firmly shut. So often it's those very things that carved the path to blessings you couldn't yet imagine. And that's what I sense in this stretch of time for you, Sagittarius. Not punishment, but quiet cosmic intervention. In the breath between plans, clarity often arrives. And if you need a story to hold on to, let me share this with you. A woman I once worked with had planned a major life move based on a long-held spiritual teaching, something she had believed implicitly for years. Just before she committed, she experienced a profound dream that shattered the teaching into 1,000 pieces, leaving her disoriented. Had she followed through in that moment, she later realized the damage to her financial stability and personal freedom would have been immense. That delay wasn't failure, it was grace. So if November feels strange in your bones, heavy electric or quietly chaotic, I want you to treat that hour as sacred ground. Let your feelings come through, but don't let them speak for you. Let the messages arrive, but don't rush to decode them. Let the hour pass through you like weather across a vast landscape, felt honored but not claimed. Because not everything that calls for your energy is worthy of it. And not everything that feels urgent deserves your immediate response. Pause here. Guard your peace and trust that timing, when it's divine, never rushes, but it never misses either. When life begins to shake beneath your feet, dear Sagittarius, and the certainty you once relied on starts to shift, it's only natural to question the ground you've stood on, your choices, your faith, even your wildest dreams. But this stretch of your journey, this trial of the spirit, isn't meant to undo you. It's here to strip away the comforts that can no longer carry your truth. And yes, the truth surfacing now might ache. You might find yourself looking back and wondering, was that philosophy ever real? Did I place my hope in a direction that never truly saw me? Have my prayers gone unheard or worse, unanswered? These questions aren't signs of weakness. They are signs that your soul is stretching, waking, preparing for something more honest. Doubt isn't the opposite of faith. It's the path that leads to a deeper kind. And behind that path waits clarity, peace, and the kind of freedom that only comes after surrender. Sometimes what feels like silence from the divine is actually alignment being rearranged behind the veil. In many sacred teachings, it's said that when God grows quiet, he is not absent. He is watching to see if you'll still trust him when there's no echo back. This is that moment for you. Not to prove yourself, but to meet the part of you that stays steady even in the unknown. The illusions that are fading now were never meant to last. They played their role. They carved you strong, but their time has passed. Let them go without bitterness. Let them fall like autumn leaves, making space for bare truth. You don't need to have the full picture to begin your transformation. You only need to loosen your grip. Surrender to the mystery without needing it to explain itself. Surrender to the silence without demanding a sign. Surrender to what your inner compass already knows, that if something is leaving your life in November, it's because something better needs room to rise. And let's talk about those prayers. The quiet ones whispered on distant mountaintops. The ones written in journals only you ever read. The ones soaked in longing too raw to speak aloud. Sagittarius, not a single one of those prayers vanished. They weren't lost. They were planted, hidden like seeds beneath vast plains, working in silence until the ground begins to crack. That pressure you're feeling now, that ache beneath the surface, it's what the earth feels just before new roots break through. Sometimes the way a prayer is answered isn't through gain, it's through removal. And yes, that can feel like loss. It can feel like being left behind or betrayed. But often it's a sacred clearing, a blessing disguised as heartbreak. What if what didn't come to pass was your protection all along? What if the detour was actually a safer road? What if this stillness, this pause, is not rejection, but the doorway to the miracle you stopped believing could reach you? This is the edge where your faith matures, not into blind hope, but into rooted wisdom. You're not being punished, you're being reshaped. And just like gold needs fire to shine, your soul is being refined to hold something greater. So if you're sitting in the dark, I invite you to say aloud or write in your journal, accept the darkness so that light may come. That's not giving up. That's trusting what's being born in the quiet. That's the strength that collapses illusions and opens doors no human hand could force. So now I ask you, Sagittarius, what illusions are you finally ready to let fall? What truths are stirring in you now, waiting for you to name them out loud? Comment below and affirm that you are ready. Let your soul feel it. Let the universe echo it back. Because when the world around you begins to fall apart, it can feel like an ending. But what if it's not ending, just sacred rebirth disguised as collapse? For you, Sagittarius, this chapter isn't punishment, it's preparation. The breaking of what felt familiar is actually the sound of your destiny rearranging itself around your truth. You might feel like a stranger in the place you once called home. You might feel distance from people you swore would always walk beside you. You might even feel betrayed by someone who once shared your deepest beliefs. But none of these moments are random. They're catalysts charged with just enough force to tear away the masks and expose the foundation beneath. Sometimes you have to lose your way in the world to remember you've always had a sanctuary inside yourself. And sometimes it's only once the map burns that you realize the path behind the smoke was always yours to walk. Someone you trusted may walk away, and yes, it will sting. But in their absence, you'll find the strength to walk alone, and then to walk in alignment. The grief is real, yes. But even in the storm, there is always something planted, a seed. Quiet, divine, and full of quiet promise. That seed won't grow by force. It waits for surrender. For the moment, your inner ground softens enough to let it break through. And then, without warning, something small and miraculous unfolds. A phrase in a song that feels like it was written for you. A feather left at your door. A voice from someone long gone heard in the in-between of sleep and waking. You're not making it up. These aren't random. They are sacred affirmations arriving right when your soul needs to remember it's never walking alone. Even when no one else shows up, heaven does. And sometimes when you're stretched to your edge, a thought comes like a flash. Not just a thought, a knowing, a business idea, a message to leave a way to heal or something entirely new. That flicker is holy. Trust it. It's not coincidence, it's grace in motion. Even strangers might hold the key you didn't know you were missing. A passing comment, a kind look in a checkout line, they can shift everything. Divine help rarely looks dramatic. It arrives in the ordinary, disguised as coincidence, but stay open. This is what rising looks like. Not thunder, but small awakenings, nudges, hints of who you're becoming next. In tarot, when the world follows destruction, it isn't just a card, it's a doorway. It speaks of completion of karmic loops, closing like old gates. It says the hardest lesson has passed and something new is ready to rise. The collapse you felt isn't a full stop. It's the inhale before a new breath. This is not the end. It's sacred, and soon it will make sense. So Sagittarius, don't curse the storm. Ask it, what is it clearing, so the truth has room to root. You're being invited to rise, not despite the falling, but because of it. Let this moment be your quiet return. Let your tears soak the ground that tomorrow's miracles will grow from. And as you wait for that first green shoot to push through, remember, beauty always finds its way back, especially through you. Not everything needs volume to echo in the soul. And this message is one of those moments. If you found your way here, it means you're ready not just to be told what's coming, but to co-create what could grow if you allow real healing into the roots of your life. This isn't just about reshuffling the pieces. It's a quiet call to remember who you were before the world told you to forget. Let's talk about healing not as a phrase to throw around, but as something sacred. A slow, grounded returning. Start with your health, because without it, even joy becomes heavy. Your body is built for motion, Sagittarius, for reaching for horizons. If you've been feeling restless, trapped, or carrying constant fatigue, that's not just stress. That's your nervous system begging for conscious release or deeper grounding. Magnesium and B vitamins aren't just supplements. They are support for your adventurous spirit, for your calm. Pulling back on caffeine or alcohol isn't punishment. It's the choice to come home to clarity. Even one cycle of 4-7-8 breath before sleep, 4 seconds in 7 holding 8 out, can begin to rewire your whole inner rhythm. Don't underestimate what one full breath of peace can do. Now let's talk about your work. If your job has begun to feel like dragging your spirit through something that no longer feeds your quest for meaning, listen. That's not failure. That's truth. You weren't made to run like a machine. You were made to carry wisdom and explore. If what you're doing has drained you past the point of return, it's okay to say that page is done. You don't have to break everything down to leave the room. You can close the door softly. Start small. Write down 3 passions, gifts, or interests you've set aside for someday. That day is now. Your soul hasn't forgotten them. It's been waiting for you to remember because you weren't made to survive in silence. You were made to bloom. Financially, November is a mirror. Something you once agreed to, a contract, a belief, even a silent compromise about your independence, may need to be reviewed. Sometimes abundance doesn't delay because you're unworthy, but because something old is still quietly draining your energy. This is not a time for reckless risks or shortcuts that promise fast returns. But do stay open. The universe has its own sense of timing. Unexpected refunds, overdue blessings, or forgotten payouts could find their way back. Like the story of someone I once supported who received a payment from a job they'd left years before. Proof that what's meant for you is never truly gone. The seeds you've planted are never lost on sacred soil. And now, love. If you're in a relationship where discomfort has been quietly growing, don't brush it aside. What feels like overthinking may actually be your deeper truth speaking through emotion. Approach it gently, with honesty, not blame. Give it space to breathe. And if your single heart open path unclear, remember this. The one meant for you won't ask you to clip your wings to be seen. They won't arrive to fix your loneliness. They'll meet you when you've stopped abandoning yourself to be chosen. The right one will never ask you to dim your fullness. They'll recognize you by the way you stand rooted in your truth. Don't rush to be chosen. Choose yourself completely and gently first. You're not meant to do this flawlessly. Healing isn't a checklist. It's a rhythm your soul remembers. Some days it's a deep breath. Some days it's saying no to what quietly depletes you. Some days it's trusting that even when the world gets loud, the divine still speaks in whispers. Let this message be one of them. And if something here reached into your heart, whether it spoke to love, money, your well-being, or your deeper calling, share it in the comments. Your voice is how your intention begins to bloom. And if this message brought even one clear breath or one quiet moment of strength, subscribe and stay close. You're not alone in this. You're not broken. You're becoming. Dearest Sagittarius, November may shake the ground beneath your life, not to destroy you, but to wake something ancient inside you. You may feel like something is slipping away, like a truth you trusted is unraveling quietly in your hands. Maybe you're being nudged out of a space, a bond, or a comfort that no longer fits. Perhaps the shift is sudden, and your heart scrambles to catch its breath. But hear me, this is not punishment. This is choosing. This is your soul being called forward to live without masks. And sometimes the beginning of that path feels like losing your footing. Yes, the universe will sometimes let the walls fall, not to harm you, but to clear what can't follow you into your next becoming. Growth isn't always gentle, but it is always sacred. And where you're walking now, Sagittarius, this is sacred ground. Your tears are not signs of weakness. They are moisture for the soil where your strength is quietly germinating. Sometimes collapse is the doorway. Sometimes a goodbye makes room for the deepest yes your soul has ever whispered. Sometimes it takes sitting alone to remember that you were never truly abandoned, only redirected with care. And Sagittarius, if you choose to stay with yourself through this shift, to move through it with honesty, steadiness, and surrender, you will meet pieces of yourself you've never seen before. You'll meet the braver you, the clearer you, the one whose roots run deep and can't be shaken. You'll call in relationships that hold your depth, not just your surface. You'll magnetize opportunities that resonate with your essence, not just your resume. You'll receive abundance that flows not only from work, but from alignment. So please don't resist this sacred undoing. Don't hold tighter to what's fading. Don't contort yourself to fit in places where your soul no longer breathes. Instead, say yes. Yes to the unknown, to the mystery that holds you even now. Say yes to becoming someone new, even if you've carried that version inside you all along. If something in this message echoed through your chest, if your spirit knows the shift is real, anchor it now. Type it into the comments. I am ready to walk through the storm and become my greatest self. Let that truth echo beyond you. Let it be light for someone else who stumbles across this message. Let your decision speak louder than your doubt. Let your courage guide the way. Let what felt like the end become the place where you truly begin. And above all, remember, This transformation isn't yours to carry alone. You're surrounded by unseen hands, sacred guidance, and kindred hearts, rising beside you in quiet strength. Thank you for walking this path with me. Your presence here holds weight more than you know. If this message settled into your soul, take a moment to like, subscribe, or share it with someone who might be searching for something soft to hold. Healing was never meant to happen in isolation. And Sagittarius, whenever the world feels too loud, you can return here. We'll still be whispering truth, steady love, and light just for you. Let November be the month that didn't break you. Let it be the month that returned you to yourself. Let it be the moment your story turned sacred because it already has. Welcome home.